All right, here we have a 3530, the ones with the scanner on top. This is pretty much just like the 3525, but it's got a scanner on top. Here we are. We're going to take off this front cover that's usually the display. I'm going to get rid of that. We need that out of the way later on. Put the screws with it, set it off to the side. Here I am just taking out the transfer belt. You can do that now or you can do it later. It's up to you. But you will need it disengaged for the final startup procedure. Now we're taking off the front control panel. We need to unhook 2 clips, 1 grounding wire, 1 USB. Here I started with the side cover. Again, 2 screws. Then you take your flathead screwdriver, and there's a little clip on top. You want to pry on that, and it comes right off. Put that off to the side. Now we're going to take the 2 screws off underneath the control panel for the front of the scanner assembly. They're 2 black screws. They should be. They're also very close together. You can't miss it. All right. Now we're gonna work on the back. After we unhook everything, of course. Again, this should only take about an extra 20 minutes tops to do the same 59F0 error on a 3525 with this 3530 with the scanner on top. All right. At this point, we're just starting with this back cover. There's 2 plastic screws where the scanner plugs into the frame, the whole machine. And then it pretty much pries off from the right-hand side. Here we are messing with the side cover. There's 4 screws. Same as 3525. Now, what I like to do on this is rotate the machine, grab it with the right hand, and you can peel the front of that cover off of its moorings where the tray sits in, and it pops right off. Then there's a side cover. It usually has a screw. This one did not. Usually 1 gray screw, 1 silver screw. Now, there's 2 holes just like this. This is the right side. There is a 1 black screw forward, very like all the way towards the middle almost. You take that out. There's 1 more on the left-hand side. Same exact looking feature. It's like a 1x1 metal tube, square middle tube. You take those 2 screws out. All right, you can set them to the side. Sometimes I like to put them with the scanner, those 2 little black screws from the back of the frame assembly. Now what I'm doing is taking off the back cover because we have to access everything there anyway, and also get a plug from the scanner off the back of the DC controller. Here we are, almost done. This one had all the screws in it, amazingly enough. All right. There's an orange and blue wire on the DC controller that needs unplugged, but what I like to do there is move and lift up on the back of the scanner assembly and just set it to the side, because it's got one pivot point in the front where you took the 2 screws out earlier. You can use that as a pivot point to deconnect the wires, the VGA, the USB, and that 2-wire connector off of the DC controller and the frame mounting of the machine. So from here, what we're doing is getting ready to take off the stapler system. There's a plug on the right hand side, plugs into the low voltage power supply, and you got to use a small screw to lift that little black bracket. It's a little channel cover, little wire channel cover. You take all that, loosen it up. Now there's a small cover, like a trim piece, that is guarding the stapler system. We have to remove the stapler system. There it is. It's got 2 plastic screws on it. 2 plastic screws. Sometimes I like to open up the door for this part, but there's a few screws here. There's one in the center that you want to make sure you get. There's one just to the right of that center, down below. Don't forget that one. You'll see here in a minute that I do. One plastic one that I just took off. Now I'm figuring out why it's not moving. Because I forgot a screw. There's a third one down below, chat. There it is. It's a machine screw. It's a black machine screw. Don't forget that one. Anyway, after you get this one off, stapler system should remove easily. One tip I would suggest doing now is removing the actual staple cartridge. Remove that and set that all to the side, because especially when you're going to put that on, which we'll end up seeing, it's a pain in the ass. So now there's one more white cover with 3 machine screws that I'm removing now. That holds the top cover on. There it is, it's off. Make sure you put the screws with it, set it off to the side. Now there's one screw in the front, one on the side, actually two in the back, and one on the lower edge here. Again, I'm removing the front door so that the top cover comes off, because that interlocks with itself. We got people driving by. Sorry guys, I'm doing a little dub over. Alright, from here it's pretty much the same as a 3525. We want to get the formatter out, remove that bracket, get to the rest of the control boards, and do our thing. So like I like to use my flathead here, remove that plug, remove the ribbon cable from the formatter board and the one on the top. Get rid of, there's 2 plugs at the top of the high voltage power supply board. I believe that's what it is. So we're going to make sure we get those 2 out of the way. Now we can take the formatter bracket out of the way. There's 2 screws. that also connect to the DC control bracket. We just need to remove one of the two that are in each position. So there's two up top, two at the bottom. We need to remove the correct one. I think I removed the wrong one here. You want to remove the bottom one on this application. And this one, you want to remove the one that's closest to the pinout that is on the bottom support bracket of that DC controller and formatter bracket. So here we are. There's 5 screws inside of the formatter bracket. We'll call it that. Some of you may say, you know, you should use a power screwdriver. I mean, I like the idea, but when you go to put them on, you can't feel the thread getting into place. You're just ramming it in there. You could possibly strip stuff. I don't like it. I like everything by feel. So again, we're just getting rid of these formatter bracket bolts. And I took the wrong one. I took the top one out. You know, looking back on this, I can see how I can make some mistakes. I hadn't done this fix for about a year. Maybe a little bit less, but you know, if you're not in practice, chat, you won't keep a good time, a repair that you're actually doing properly and hitting all the steps. So anyway, there's the lower quadrant of that HVPC power, or PS. That's the high voltage power supply, I believe, or some sort of board. I'm not sure, but it's that big long triangulated board. I took out its bottom screw first, then its top right corner. Now I am working on, again, just like the 3525, the DC controller bracket screws. There's one at the bottom left, one at the top left, and then there is one more at the top right. But then there's one on the side as well. Don't forget that one on the side, otherwise you can't do it. But there's a hole there. You see where my finger was? There's a hole. What we're going to be able to do is maneuver that board to the side in order to look through that hole right there to get that upper screw for that triangulated board. All right. It's pretty simple. That's the fix. That's what takes less time than unplugging all those wires, removing the board, removing the bracket, and then getting to that board and just pulling it straight off. We're saving time here, chat. Especially if you're in a break fix atmosphere, environment, and you need to be able to fix and run, right? So now we're able to do and get this board out. There's a couple tricks. You got to stick a flat head maybe at the bottom. There's a bottom plastic piece that has a clip. All you got to do is just push that clip up. But make sure that when you're pulling that out, you're pulling your DC controller bracket out. And now we're able to get to the culprit, which is the transfer solenoid, which is just behind these wires. So we like to unplug that wire. And I like to put it, I'll just maneuver the connection for the solenoid right on top after I'm all done with this. There's no need to put it back underneath where a lot of times you'll find it. So now we're just removing the 2 screws to remove the transfer solenoid housing, or the, I guess it would be a bracket. The housing is pretty much what you're unscrewing it from, but it comes out in a little bit. You have so much room to work with it according to the length of the wire, which is fine. Plenty of room. So now what we want to do is use our 3/8 inch shrink wrap. If that's all you got, I prefer using Rico proofing material. But sometimes you have to clean the arm, so make sure you clean the arm of any residue that might stick to the shrink wrap. You don't want that to stick together, chat. So you take your shrink wrap, you put it onto the little ledge. Let the arm go. You don't want to do it to the arm, only because the arm has a chance to slip. At least here, it's on that lip, and then you can use a little flame, a little heat, and shrink wrap it tight. And that will stand the test of time. Or at least I'd like to hope so. The proofing material definitely stands the test of time. I have never seen that fail. So if you have that, chat, it's a Rico part. It starts with a D. Delta 026 something. It's the best option to use. But anyway, as you're putting it in, you need to make sure that it kind of fits into the groove of where that gear is. And then you got to hold it. And then you got to grab your screwdriver. Hopefully it's magnetic. Add your screw. And carefully get a screw started and snug, so you can let go of it. This is the trick. This is a tricky part. I mean, if you're mechanically inclined, here it is. I had to reposition. But if you're mechanically inclined, you can feel it. You have to feel it go into its track. That's another part of this, chat. This is another part of the tricks. Here we are. We're getting the one side snug. You can get the other side snug. Nice and quick. Nobody's been in those screws. Oh, it's so nice when that happens. All right, so here it is. That motor, we need to rotate clockwise. It's tough to see, but you'll see a gear that's rotating and then it stops. And that's because the solenoid grabbed onto the gear. That's the gear that you need to make sure gets reset. Otherwise, you're going to throw another 59 F0. You're going to have to rip this whole thing apart and reseat that gear, just so you don't pop that code again. 100%. Well, at least 90% of the time, I would imagine. But that is very important. So that's what I was doing here. Rotating the gear. Making sure that gear stops. It's tough to see in this picture. I don't have a really good angle on that one. But now it's all putting it back together, chat. Get that little wire guide assembly. I'm just plugging it in on the outside of it, but also getting the wires into the track. It's done. Now it's time to put the board back in. Remember, pull that DC controller bracket out so you have room for the resistors and stuff at the bottom of that triangulated board. If you mess those up, you're going to have another problem. A problem you don't want. So we get that on the bottom peg, And then make sure at the top it lines up, like the front of the board isn't behind where the screw goes. You want to make sure it's in front of where the screw goes. That's another part that kind of can get tricky, chat. You got to watch out. So we're just securing it with that one. Make sure it's where it needs to go. Get the upper one ready while we use one hand to maneuver the DC controller over so that we can get that screw in. This is a tough screw to do. You have to be very careful, especially not to drop it. Make sure your screwdriver is magnetic. Very magnetic. That step is imperative as well. So sometimes they can be a little stubborn. This one was being a little stubborn. That looks like we got it. There it is. That's the trick. Right there, chat. That's the trick. This is what saves you 30 minutes or less. All right, now we're just fixing the DC controller bracket. That's done. What we want to do is get that DC controller bracket fixed before we do the lower bolt, the lower screw for the HV because that bracket could be sagging when you go to put that lower screw in for the triangulated board. So we get that all set up. And now we can actually put that screw in, which we just did. It's underneath. It's like right there. You can see it. You can see that screw. Now we're going to connect those connectors. And then everything else is pretty much in reverse order, chat. Just don't forget to reconnect all your connectors. First, I like to make sure I get all the screws in, and then I'll make sure I get the connectors done. My theory on that is you have the brackets connected, fastened, everything's secure, and then that way then you can connect all your electrical connections. Just feel like that makes a better process. Yep, just making sure we get all the screws in. Again, there's 5. There's 1 up top, 4 on the bottom, and then 2 on the left side. So a total of 7. All right, here we are securing the rest of the DC control bracket. going to slide our formatter in. I like to do this now only because it helps me line up the back panel a little bit easier later on, or at least then I know it's completely lined up. Makes it easier, I feel. Now we'll put the top cover on. Give it the old slap. That's an important step. Just make sure you give it the old slap. Everything's in reverse, pretty much. So what we're doing is making sure that the top 2 screws on the top cover are secure. Now we're going to put on the top 2 covers. Top 2 little trim pieces, I should say. Again, this first one, white one, slides right into place pretty easily. Secured by 3 machine screws. Very easy. Chair wants to say hi. I know. All right. Next is the stapler system. Again, I didn't do this, but take out the stapler cartridge. It'll make this part right here easier. So there is a piece plug. Make sure you plug that power supply in. Which is that big ass long wire that goes to the other side of the machine, which doesn't make sense. It should just go basically right in front here on the left right hand side. Little wire, boom. But it doesn't. So anyway, secure your screws. There's the plastic one. Remember, when you're putting plastic screws on, that you reverse, go to the left like you're loosening until you feel the screw fall into place. And then that way you get the original thread and you don't strip that out. It's very important on certain models, especially fuser replacements, especially like 3035s. P3015s. They all have plastic screws. You got to be very careful not to strip those out, because that's frame screws that they go onto. And once you strip them out, you're in a whole world of hurt. So here we are, just fastening the other trim piece, the blue piece, to that. Making sure that we have all our connections connected. Since we have it in, just make sure everything's connected. Now we're running the wire for the power and control of the stapler system in the back and the side, and of course along the top. Get that in the channel just right, and then we can plug it in. Nice and easy. Put that little black cover back on. It's a channel protector. Doesn't really need it, but might as well. Grab that. You can put that back on. You can wait till later to put that on as well. It's up to you. Here I am making another mistake. Don't put this on yet. You need to bring the scanner over. Again, I haven't done this this repair. This repair had been a minute since the last time I did it. And I totally botched this. But it's okay. You're going to learn from my mistakes. However, you can do this with the back cover on now, because there is a window in the back of that cover that you can slide that orange and blue white connector to the DC controller. You can do that. I have done that. I can't remember if I did it on this one or not, but everything else, again, this is just like a 3525 chat. That's all it is. Here I am remembering I have to bring the scanner on first. So I did catch myself. Here I am lowering the front peg in and setting the back two pegs off to the side of where they more into, because there is enough space on the frame. Very easy. So now we're just connecting the VGA and the USB, and then we're going to connect, hopefully I believe, the blue and orange wire with the white connector that goes to the DC controller. Here it is. Boom. All right, there I am. I'm grabbing that connector now. Maybe. Nope. Here we are. Putting the screws in for the back of the scanner. All right, so like when I do put the back cover on, I like to start with the bottom two screws because they have little detents that line it up. I just like to not necessarily snug them, but just get them there, and then that way I can snug up the top ones and make sure they're all aligned and all the other ones. You do have to, this back cover is a little bit tricky. You just make sure that you're lining up the holes, and when you go to tighten a screw down, it looks like all the holes line up. And they will, for the most part, unless you've gotten a refurbished one that's been dropped. It's got a bent frame or some shit. If it's working, more power to it. But anyway, here we are, just making sure that everything's secure. We're just putting in, again, this is reverse. You may do things a little bit differently. That's fine. But this is how I get through a repair like this on a 3530. An HP. CP, or is it... Yeah, CP 3530? Or is it a M35? No, I think it's a CP. Yep, this is the boring stuff. It's okay. When putting that side cover on, just press on the bottom front side a little bit as you do it. It will help with getting it seated properly. And make sure you put that on right side up. Alright, let's put the corner cover on. Just got to line up the back side and then make sure it's all lined up and give it a little smack. It's a technical procedure. Get those 2 screws in. There we are. We've got to make sure we get the front side buttoned up. Put this on at the end. You can put this on now. Lately, I've been doing that one first and last. Like, we're almost done. We just gotta secure a few things. We're gonna secure the front side of the scanner with the 2 black screws. Yes, this fix is a little more involved, but it's pretty much the same. It really is. Just got a little extra moving parts. So now we're just connecting the ground wire and the USB connection for the display. This is like a USB charger connection. Here I am. I think I'm connecting the scanner assembly because I didn't do that earlier. All right, everything's pretty much ready to go. We're going to slide that in, but we're not going to engage it. Again, if you engage the transfer belt, you could throw another 59F0 code. So everything's plugged up. We're booting. These ones take a little bit longer to boot because it has to go through the whole scanner assembly initialization. But it's booting. We're going to wait. That's what we have to do as a technician. We have to make sure it boots up. Now, I guess what I'm doing here is cleaning the white balance scanner detector and also giving the rollers a little cleaning with rubber rejuvenator. It's a harsh product. I haven't had any problems with it. I do know of some stories from older techs that say it can dry out the rollers prematurely, but I think that is based on brand. And with HPs, I have not had a problem with. But we cleaned the glass, we cleaned the white balance detector, whatever you call it, white balance parameter bar. Got to give that a cleaning. And this thing should be pretty much tip-top. Again, I'm just waiting for it to boot up. You can do a few other things while you're looking at things, waiting for it to boot up. Like, you can check the tray, make sure the feed roller is good. You can make sure that the separator roller is stiff enough. But as we wait, we just wait. Yep, still waiting. There we go. Scanner is initializing. Get the message to close the right door. Make sure everything's pushed in. Of course, here I have a problem with the door. Didn't know that whenever I pulled this apart. That's fine. We'll figure it out. Easy peasy. All right. Everything's secure. We have a screen. What I like to do is print a config page, because that one gives me a 3-page test print. Control panel's responding. Still cleaning. It's fine. It's going to do that. However, there it is. There's the however you want to do it. That paper feed sound and it going through, getting ready to be transported onto the page. So thank you. Thank you guys for hanging out for this one. I appreciate it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give me some comments. Let me know what you thought. And we'll try and keep these going. I've got some more stuff planned and some good fixes if you guys are interested. All right. Successful configuration page. Now we're going to go test the copy. This one made a noise. This seems like it was in the ADF. Not exactly sure, but you can see here. I don't understand what's going on, but it worked. I tested it later, and it actually didn't make the noise after that. So we'll call that a diag and a repair. But here we are. We're just making sure we're set back to where the customer had it. Things are working. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and let me know what you thought in the comments. I appreciate it, guys.